Welcome to The Gut Show. I'm your host, Erin Judge, registered dietitian and founder of Gutivate. I'm also your fellow IBS warrior. Our goal on this side of the internet is to empower those with IBS and digestive disorders to understand their gut better, to have a healthier relationship with their bodies, and to make confident choices to improve their digestive health. During this season, you can expect a conversation around a hot topic related to gut health, digestion, and IBS. As a disclaimer, I am a dietitian, but I am not your dietitian. So everything covered in this episode is meant to be educational and is purely information that you can take back to your healthcare team in order to make the best decisions for you. If you're new here and something just doesn't feel right in your gut, if your symptoms have led you to this podcast, I invite you to start by taking the quiz, What's Your Poop Personality? Your personality type will unveil what your symptoms may mean, what may be causing them, and what you can do about them. This is a free quiz and you can take it today at gutivate.com or find the direct link below in the show notes. While you're going to take the quiz, let's jump into today's episode. Welcome back to The Gut Show. I am so excited for today because we are going to talk about a topic that we weave into every single season. So stress. This is not a new topic. This is something that I talk about at least 2 to 3 times a month on social media. Every single season, we're talking about stress, symptoms, managing stress for symptoms, the gut-brain connection. So why are we bringing it up again? And why am I excited to talk about it again? Because I see this as something that many of us know, like in our heads, right? We know that this is something to be thoughtful about. We know that this is something that impacts the gut. But so often I see clients, I see people commenting, I see influencers in the space that are also dealing with IBS, not actually addressing this piece. And I don't say that as like a topic of shame or like slapping you on the hand or anything like that, because that's not my place. Even if you are my client, that is not the approach that I take. I say that because I think this is one of the most underutilized like areas to work on for symptom relief, better gut health long term, feeling your best, having the best quality of life that you can. And it's one of the hardest to address because there's so much that might be in your control, and there's also so much that may be out of your control. And the work itself is actually really hard. It takes a lot of not only discipline, it takes a lot of sacrifice, it takes a lot of boundaries, a lot of courage. And so today we're going to get into it again. And I hope that with talking about this over and over and over and over again, the new refreshed conversation not only is a good reminder to you that this is something that is important and is available as a tool at your fingertips to hopefully find better symptom relief, but also that this maybe there's a fresh perspective on it that I can share today that connects with you, clicks with you in a stronger way than anything that we've talked about before can. That is always my goal, talking about something over and over and over again, is that maybe we can bring something new into the conversation that empowers you the most so that you can leave this conversation with real tools and hopefully more success in this area. Because I want to see you win. I want to see you feel better. I want to see you poop better. I want to see you like not have to be here anymore. Honestly, like I love you. Glad you're here. I'm so honored that I get this platform and community. But at the same time, I honestly wish I didn't have a job because I wish we all felt better and you didn't need me, right? That's my ultimate goal. So that is what we're working towards, and we're on that path together. And today is another step in that direction. So when we're talking about stress and IBS symptoms, gut symptoms, digestive symptoms, it's important to understand how stress can actually manifest into specific symptoms. So taking a further step back, stress is part of the conversation because we have what's called the gut-brain connection. The gut and the brain are connected through the HPA axis, and it's really a communication between two nervous systems. So you have your central nervous system, which we can think of as like the major command center of the body. It includes the brain, the spinal cord, and it's where a lot of different nerves, neurotransmitters, everything's communicating, and we're able to kind of communicate to the brain, and the brain is able to communicate back to different parts of the body to help with different functions of the body, sensations that we feel, responses to sensations, all of that. That is the main job of the central nervous system, and it is really there to make sure everything is going smoothly. We also have what we call the enteric nervous system, or the ENS. So CNS, ENS. The enteric nervous system is a smaller central nervous system that doesn't have quite as many widespread effects on the body, but it is primarily located in the gut. Its primary focus is going to be digestion, digestive functions, the gut itself, but it does interact with other systems as well, and it directly communicates with the central nervous system. Now, the cool thing is that these nervous systems can work together, and they should work together, because if they're working together, then everything is running in harmony and communication is happening smoothly and processes are doing what they need to do. And if things have to get interrupted in one area of the body for another area of the body that we see during stress states, or different needs, like during exercise or in a fasted period or whatever it may be, that then these nervous systems are able to kind of calibrate and reprocess a bit and get everything else kind of getting back on track as quickly as possible. That is an ideal scenario. The bad side of this is that these nervous systems can function independently of one another, and so they can either work together or work separately. And this gut brain communication or nervous system communication can either be bidirectional, in harmony, super smooth, exactly as it should be, or there can be some dysfunction, miscommunication in these nervous systems. And that can lead to sensations that are maybe more heightened than they should be, like we see with IBS and visceral hypersensitivity. It might be that the functions of the body are not working as smoothly, like we see with digestive function and motility, or we see with like even enzyme production and different secretions that need to happen during the digestive process. We can also see this with like heart rate, blood pressure, things like that as well. So it's not just the gut, but other systems can malfunction from miscommunication with these nervous systems. So there's a lot that can go well. There's also a lot that can go wrong. With this pathway and this connection between the gut and the brain, there's also a potential relationship between gut microbes and the health of the gut environment, looking at even the health of the intestinal wall and what that means for the brain, a potential role for brain barrier function, and how nerves and neurotransmitters are working in the brain in relation to gut microbes. There's a lot that still needs to be uncovered there, but there is an interesting connection between the gut and the brain. And so we talk about this a lot when we're talking about stress. So that is the kind of broader view. The gut and the brain are connected. We've got that. There are nervous systems involved. We've got that. And these nervous systems may kind of sabotage each other. We've got that, right? What does this actually look like in terms of symptoms directly related to stress? So whenever the body is in more of a stress state, and this is on the nervous system side, we can get into a stress state, or we can be in a rest and digest state. You're going to be in one or the other. This is part of the autonomic nervous system, which is the kind of what do we call it? Involuntary, right? We don't have as much conscious control fully over the autonomic nervous system. It is kind of a bunch of switches that can happen based on our environment, but we're not like consciously controlling it fully. And so we're either going to be stress state or rest and digest state. And whenever you are in a stress state, the body shifts some of its functions to prioritize what we need during that stress state. So we call this that fight or flight response. You've likely heard this talked about, where if you're in a fight or flight response, the heart is prioritized, the brain is prioritized, muscles are prioritized so that you can run, you can fight, you can do whatever you want. And we talked about that often as like being chased by a bear, the brain not knowing the difference, kind of knows the difference, but we can be in that state, either in a severe state where we are literally being chased by the bear and fully in fight or flight, or we may be in even more of a mild state, but still over the line enough that we are switched on to that stress state. With the digestive system primarily, this leads to a slowdown in your gut motility or the movement of your gut because the digestive system is not necessary for a stressed state, right? You don't need the digestive system to be functioning perfectly whenever you are fighting something or running from a bear. That is not necessary. And so the digestive system is slowed down and the whole digestive process is kind of turned down so that all of that energy can go elsewhere in the body, right? And so whenever the digestive system is slowed down, you're going to get less digestive capacity, meaning you're not going to digest food as well as you should be because the things that need to be in place for digestion aren't present. They're not there fully. They're not working as well as they can be. And that can lead to more food reactions, that can lead to more bloating, more GI discomfort. Slowed gut motility can lead to constipation, trapped gas, and even upper GI symptoms like GERD, reflux, burping, pain, things like that. This slow digestive capacity and slowed motility can also lead to more cramping, more discomfort, more pain. And what else can happen in this state, sometimes more in the short term, but can also kind of flip flop, is that the rectum may empty so that there's no poop stored, so that during that fight or flight process, you don't need to go to the bathroom. So you kind of go beforehand, which is why in a really stressed state, some people will pee their pants, poop their pants, completely involuntary. There's no control over it because that's part of that stress response. And so some people may deal with this kind of urgent stool emptying or urgent need to pee or empty the bladder, empty the rectum. That can be part of the stress state as well, in addition to the slow motility. But over time, if you are dealing with chronic stress, you're chronically in that stress state, you are likely going to deal with less stomach acid production, poor enzyme production, and slowed motility overall, leading to some of these chronic symptoms that often get blamed on other things. What else can happen during states of stress and its impact on digestion is an increase in visceral hypersensitivity, which I referred to earlier. Hypersensitivity is a hallmark of IBS. It's what causes pain in IBS, but we can also see this in other states, different GI conditions, or even in non-diagnosed states if you're just dealing with chronic symptoms. But visceral hypersensitivity is where different sensations happening inside your gut, inside your body, those sensations are communicated to the brain by those nerves that are found throughout your gut, which isn't normal. The brain then communicates the response back. And so in the brain, we have a pain responsive region of the brain, and these are more heightened in those with IBS specifically. And this is the hypersensitivity. Those pain responsive regions of the brain, they signal pain as a reaction to that sensation that should not be painful. Gas production, slow motility, increased motility, bloating, water coming into the gut, things that just happen normally during digestion. There's now pain associated with it. Whenever you are in a stress state and you are dealing with chronic stress, because the brain is part of that and the brain is now activated, oftentimes this visceral hypersensitivity can get worse. So that means worsened pain, more urgency, more cramping, more heightened awareness of the sensations in your body, more feelings of discomfort, more feelings of bloating. You're going to feel that more strongly. And this can be prolonged and worsened the more that stress is prevalent. And if we don't get into that more rest and digest state, reduce stress, and find ways to regulate, then this hypersensitivity may just get worse and worse and worse and worse. And you might be able to use a supplement for a short amount of time, use a medication for a short amount of time, adjust your diet, try to adjust those sensations for a short amount of time. But that sensitivity is still worsening, making your symptoms progressively get worse no matter what you do. And oftentimes that's a sign that stress may be a piece of that puzzle. What else can happen whenever you are dealing with stress is that you may have increased tension inside of your body. And this is sort of a secondary effect with the gut, but increased tension of your hips, your abdomen, muscles, your back, everything surrounding those digestion organs can cause issues with your gut motility. That is possible. And that can lead to hypermotility, where things move too fast, more cramping. It can also lead to slow motility, where it feels like things just are sluggish or kind of stuck. You may deal with more bloating and more feelings of bloating, and even more pain or discomfort overall. The muscles that are tense aren't necessarily directly like connected to the smooth muscle of the gut, but it is all connected. We know that. You're having period cramps if you get a period. You're likely going to feel those cramps in your back. You may even feel them in your shoulders, right? That pain is going to affect your body wholly. The same is true of if you pull a muscle in your back, you're probably going to feel some pain in your abdomen, or you may notice it in your groin. Like things are going to kind of compensate with each other, but also the more tense you are, kind of the way that you respond to that pain and tension can impact other parts of your body, including your digestion, which is often, again, overlooked and not talked about, both from a kind of soft tissue standpoint, like if you've had injury to tissue, or if you are very non-mobile, if you're not moving around, if you aren't in your exercise programs working on flexibility and mobility, you may deal with more digestion symptoms. The same is true of if you are tense from stress and holding that tension in, which is related to that as well. And then what else can happen is that whenever you activate the brain, this can then impact different behaviors that you are experiencing. So, whenever you are under more stress, your anxiety might go up, your depression might go up, your rumination or overwhelm, might go up as well. And this can lead to different changes in your food choices, how you move your body or you don't, your sleep patterns, your sleep quality. This may impact your self talk, your hygiene, all of these things that can then impact your symptoms and your gut. And so often we want to focus on the behaviors, and we want to, again, slap the wrist and say, you shouldn't have eaten that. You should know better. You just need to go to sleep. You just need to exercise more. And we sometimes forget to think about what is influencing those behaviors, because it may just be knowledge and choice and discipline. Maybe for some of us, that's it. And you just need routines. You need to know how those things will better your gut. You've probably heard about it on here on the podcast. And sometimes that's all you need. And you put those things into place and you feel amazing and things are great. For others, you may know that things are important for your gut. You may have a bit of discipline, and you may try really, really hard to put those things into place, but somehow it's just not working and you're not able to. And you might be beating yourself up and saying, like, well, I'm just not disciplined enough or whatever. When the problem is not necessarily that that behavior needs to change, it's that what is impacting and deciding the behavior for you needs to be addressed. And oftentimes that goes back to stress, mental health, stressors that are completely uncontrolled, a lack of boundaries in your life, overwhelmed nervous system. Like I see it so often. And that's the part many people don't want to focus on. They want to think about, well, the behaviors. Let me just go to the gym more frequently. Let me just go to bed earlier. Let me just blah, blah, blah. And maybe it'll work for a short amount of time, but that stress can only be ignored for so long before your body physically shuts down or those behaviors start to change in relation to that stress, which then impacts your symptoms and kind of starts this cycle of trying to change, maybe seeing a little bit of result, behavior slip, feeling bad, self-sabotage, negative self-talk, beating yourself up, and so on. And that does not lead to a good quality of life or even success in managing symptoms long term. Are you listening to today's episode with the main thought being, what are the steps that I can take to get rid of my symptoms right now? While I hope that the information that we share in every episode of The Gut Show leaves you feeling more empowered and more confident in your body, it's not always going to solve your problem or give you a clear direction for your specific symptoms and your needs. The Master Method membership is an online program for the person with chronic digestive symptoms and IBS who want step-by-step guidance to understand their body, address the drivers of IBS, reduce symptoms, and build resilience in your gut long-term. This membership includes a step-by-step course and a dietitian-led community that teaches you how to holistically address each symptom and the IBS drivers, how to reduce symptoms more strategically and with confidence, and guidelines for better gut health long-term so that you're not only thinking about today, but you're also improving your outcomes in the future. It is time to ditch the symptoms and get your life back. The membership is your first step. You can learn more and enroll at ibsmastermethod.com and use the code GUTSHOW, GUTSHOW, GUTSHOW for $25 off your enrollment fee. Now, let's get back to today's episode. So there's a lot of ways that stress can be impacting you and impacting your journey with IBS. And it might just be that you have this short-term stress trigger for your symptoms. That can happen, and that is something that's important to recognize. That's not really what we're talking about as much today, but that is a big piece of it. It also could be that there is more of a chronic stress impact on your gut that is leading to the chronic nature of what you're experiencing, keeping you stuck in your progress moving forward with your gut. And it needs to be addressed for you to break through that kind of barrier that you're experiencing. With this chronic stress, what is often happening is what we call a stress overload. So I like to think about this like a bucket, right? You have your bucket. We each have our individual bucket, and there are things in your life that can impact the size of your bucket. Your bucket is your capacity for stress before it impacts you negatively, right? You have a certain amount of capacity for stressors in your life, in your day, that your body can handle before it is negatively impacted. Regulation means we are aware of what our bucket looks like, how much capacity we have, what is filling our bucket, and we are able to either kind of protect the bucket and don't overfill it if it's already getting full, or start removing things from the bucket to make space for what else needs to come in. That is what regulating your nervous system looks like. That is what stress management means. It is not having zero bucket or like removing it completely and having an empty bucket at all times. It's preventing your bucket from overflowing. Now, understanding the size of your bucket comes down to your health, your mental health, your history. All of us are different, right? Our capacity looks different, and that is okay. That is part of being human, and your capacity may change over time, but get really honest with yourself of what your capacity looks like now. And a lot of awareness work, journaling, maybe even therapy, talking through this, really taking inventory of what's happening, how your body's responding, trial and error. That is how you understand your bucket. The next thing is we want to understand what fills the bucket. So there are many different stressors that exist. One of them is stress as you think it is. Getting in a fight with a friend, increased workload, right? These stressors that we see as stressful, responsibilities on your plate, maybe taking care of a loved one, a child, somebody in your life, right? Those are stressors that adds stress. Dealing with a financial strain or political changes, war in your country or just in the world, like injustices, those are stressors. There are also other stressors that could be ignored that fill the bucket. That includes your sleep. Either lack of sleep, if you're getting less than 7 hours a night, that is adding some stress into your environment, but also quality of sleep. Are you waking up frequently? Are you really tired all of the time? That can add stress. Changes in hormones, and that can be sex hormones that we see throughout menstrual cycles or changing with age. That also might look like thyroid hormones, like if you were dealing with an under or overproduction of certain hormones, that can impact you. That's a really important one to look at. Different exercise levels and changes with your exercise. Exercise is a good stressor. You need stress to build resilience, to build endurance. Exercise is part of that. You have to have stress on your muscle to build stronger muscle. You have to have stress on your body to then be able to have endurance to run longer or do more, have that cardio, like heart capacity, right? It's important. However, it does add to your load short term. So it is still adding to the bucket. And then overall responsibilities. schedule, what's on your plate, lack of self-care, that's adding to the load. And those may be positive things. Happy hour with your friends, dinner with your coworkers. It may look like having an event that you go to every single night, being active in your community, being part of the PTA, having, all these kids sports that you go to, taking on more responsibility at work for projects that you're really excited about, that you're working towards a promotion, but working longer hours than you normally would, traveling, going on work trips, like all of that can add up and add to your stress load. Travel and change in your routines can also add to this load. Even if it is vacation for fun, whatever it may be, that is still going to add to this load. So understand what your bucket looks like, understand what is filling your bucket, and building some intuition over each day. Okay, where is my bucket? What do I have capacity for? Where can I create capacity, right? With self care, we're going to talk through some of those strategies. And then how do I protect my bucket from being overfilled until I can create more capacity as I move forward to prevent this overflow and to help protect myself from being negatively impacted by that stress load, right? That's what we want to work towards. So if stress is more short term, or that bucket is just getting to the top, you're feeling that heightened amount of stress, ways to kind of clear some of that bucket or expand your capacity is to focus on calming your body and reduce the severity of the symptoms that you're experiencing. So reduce the negative effect as much as possible, get the body into a calm state, try to widen that bucket where you can. And you can do this through diaphragmatic breathing, deep belly breathing using the diaphragm that has been shown to calm the nervous system, get the nervous system in more of that rest and digest state. I love box breathing for this. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. But simply just doing slow, controlled diaphragmatic breathing can be helpful. You can literally, if you're on YouTube right now, if you're on a podcast, you can literally Google this, right? How do I do diaphragmatic breathing? And you can go through this. You can also work with a physical therapist. Pelvic floor physical therapy is really great for this, to assess your breathing, to make sure you're using your diaphragm properly and getting the most out of this. Another technique is grounding. This is where you simply get present in the moment that you're in. For some people, it's very physical. Take your shoes off, put your feet into the ground, put your hands into the ground, like feel the earth beneath you, like ground into the present. It could look like a body scan where you literally scan your whole body, connect with head to toes, everything that is present in the moment. It may look like a senses exercise where you connect to all of your senses. What do I see? What do I smell? What do I touch? What do I taste? Like, what do I hear? What is going on in this present moment? Ground into the moment. That can be really helpful to shift out of some of that like mental stress overload of what if I need to do this, this is on my schedule, and get you back into the moment to expand your capacity a little bit more. Movement can do this, especially being outdoors, kind of expanding your capacity through some of that dopamine rush, but also again, getting your body more of a rest and digest state, regulating that stress level. Now, adding stress through movement may not help, but a calm, gentle walk, yoga, anything mindfulness based can be really helpful. And then asking for support or help. Sometimes, again, the stress, this bucket overload, sometimes it is really tangible. Like, okay, I didn't sleep. I'm going through changes in my menstrual cycle. I haven't eaten. I didn't mention that one. Not eating can put your body in a stress state. I haven't eaten any food today. I've drank a lot of coffee. I've got this big, project at work that I'm behind on. You can point to those. Sometimes the stress bucket is also a lot of the mental work of all of that, the emotional work of that, where you are worried about how this project is going to be perceived, and you're concerned about how that's going to impact the potential raise that you may get, or you're worried about strained relationships because you haven't been able to hang out with your friends recently and there's something going on there, or you're concerned about your symptoms, right? You're concerned about what's going to happen next and how your body's going to be responding to what's going on today. And there's a lot more mental and emotional fillers in that bucket. And if that's the case, then it may be time to ask for help. Yes, with taking some things off your plate, absolutely delegate where you can. That can be helpful, but also talking through things and getting a little bit of support, space to talk through, that can expand your capacity and take some of those things out of your bucket. Now, those are more short term. There are some longer term strategies to consider, because if your bucket overflows, it's easy for me to say all of those short-term things. Focus on these things, expand your capacity, empty your bucket out. Great, you'll be good tomorrow. That's not true. If your bucket has been overfilled and overflowing for a significant period of time, you are already noticing those negative effects on your body. It will take time to recover from that. It will take time of emptying the bucket, supporting the bucket, and then kind of taking care of your body and giving it time to get back into a rest and digest state, become comfortable there, and just restore those functions that have gotten off and decrease that hypersensitivity. That will take time. So the goal is to build habits that are supportive so that we can prevent this and also support the recovery for this. I usually say expect almost double the time to fully recover. And that's not always true, but it's a good expectation. If you've been under chronic stress for 2 to 3 months and have really not focused on this your own self-care in that process, and now you've noticed the response by your body, expect 4 to 6 months of putting these habits into place to truly see a big difference and more resilience in your body. It takes time, and it cannot be rushed, because often that will just bring you back into more of a stress state, right? So this is really important. Give your body time and trust that these habits are supporting you and that they will pay off. Because I do see a lot of people, learn about this, learn about the gut brain piece, learn about the stress piece, focus on building these habits for a couple of weeks. They don't see an immediate result, or they still have some symptoms that are lingering, and then they give up on these habits and assume that they're not working anymore. And what happens is that they end up back where they started, they don't see the results, and they don't come back to them, meaning they're missing tools that can be so important. So I do encourage you to lean into trust that your body needs these supportive habits for stress, for your nervous system, for regulation long term, and this will pay off. It just might not pay off immediately, and the results may take time, but they are worth it. So, what are those habits? Sleep is a huge one. Enough sleep and also good quality of sleep. Self care practices. And sometimes this looks like going out with friends and a social aspect to it. Sometimes this looks like no social activity, being home, really relaxing and recovering. Not just doing, but maybe engaging in hobbies, going outside, just being quiet and still with yourself. It may look like journaling. It may look like therapy. It may look like what you consider, aesthetic self-care, where you go to the sauna or you take a warm bath and you fully relax. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's simply cooking dinner at home with your favorite music on. Like, it may look like a lot of different things. Take breaks from work, especially in responsibilities where you can. Not all of us have this choice and this luxury, but if you can create any space for downtime and space away from work, this can be huge. We have had clients in our practice end up having to quit their jobs and find new jobs because of the impact that their work has had on them and their inability to set boundaries with that work. And it does impact your gut. Every time that this has happened, simply letting that go, finding a new option, has resolved a lot of the symptoms that were still lingering. So this is a huge piece. Don't get to the point where you have to quit or take a full sabbatical from work. Try to find spaces for downtime where you can, even now. Each evening when you clock out, actually take time to clock out. Take time to take vacations. Take your weekends off. Find that downtime where you can. Meditation and grounding, as we mentioned earlier, in the short term, this can help. This can also build up your body's natural response. The more that you use these tools, the more that they're available to you kind of in the spur of the moment. And that's really important. Journaling and therapy, reflection over things can be helpful. Therapy can never be overlooked. And then consistent exercise and movement, as well as eating consistent balanced meals. Nourishing your body with movement, with nutrition. This is also really key and important. So your body has the building blocks it needs, but it's also building resilience and endurance for stress that comes its way through your exercise, and incorporating outdoors with that movement where you can. Morning walks, evening walks, getting outside for your lunch break, all of that can be really important. and can give you some major results long term. So when we're thinking about stress, there's more that might go into this that's more personalized for you. And I hope that your takeaway from the episode is a little bit more awareness of how stress may be impacting your body specifically, some awareness over your own capacity and what's taking up that capacity, and a different approach to addressing this than what you might have considered before. And even maybe one new tool that you can leave here with and consider adding in from that awareness, from the connection between your body's response to these things in your life, and how maybe you can support yourself and support your body in a way that feels right, that feels good, that feels fully connected. That is my hope and my goal. If you are really struggling with this on your own, our team is here. We do a lot of coaching in our programs around this. We are not going to tell you what you have to do, but we are there to help you build that awareness, to help put some of these things in place, give you some encouragement, a little healthy accountability with that, kind of help you understand what is all going on, and maybe even take some of that load off of you. There's info on that in the show notes if you're interested. And if that is something that you are needing right now, we are here and we do this pretty well. There's also therapy out there. GI psychologists are out there. There's a lot of resources for this specifically, to where you don't have to navigate this alone. And if I can leave you with one final piece of, call it advice if you want, don't compare yourself to others in this process, because remember, your bucket is different than someone else's bucket. Your life is going to look different than someone else's life. And it's unfair to you. It's unfair to your future, your success with all of this, to compare yourself to someone else if they have not walked the exact same steps that you have. And I say that not to discourage you, but to release the expectation that this is going to look one way for you that it does for someone else, and instead offer you the freedom to navigate this for yourself. There is always something you can do. You may have 10 tools available. You may have 2 tools available. It is possible to still utilize this for you. You have to do it, though, with the lens of yourself in the center. This is the time to be selfish. Focus on yourself, your own awareness. That is what's going to help you take those steps forward. Just following what someone else is doing may not work, but connecting deeply to yourself and what you need and what's available at your fingertips is important, and can be really successful. I fully believe that for you. I've seen it in many different clients. I've seen it with different types of people. And the minute that we release comparison, there's just so much opportunity. So no comparison, focus on yourself, connect to yourself, and really take inventory of what's going on and what you can do moving forward. I'm going to leave that there. We've got a lot of resources on stress, so if you need more perspectives on that, we have it. We've talked about this a lot, but I hope that this was helpful. If it was, please share. I truly love hearing your thoughts, your takeaways, hearing how whatever I'm doing right here in this chair has an impact in a different world than my own, means a lot to me. So if this has meant something to you, if you do take action on this, please share our private community. You can message me, you can share it on your stories, tag me on social media. I'd love to hear it. Leave a review if you want. That would be really great. And then I hope you can tune in next week, because next week we are going to take a little bit more of a narrow focus here and talk about FODMAPs, specifically onion and garlic, and how to replace these, and like why this may be a topic of conversation. So if you've done the FODMAP diet before, if you're already on it, it's going to be helpful. But also if you're considering it or dealing with symptoms and wondering a place to start with food without a full FODMAP approach, it's going to be a great conversation. So join us next week for that. Binge our other episodes if this is the first one you've heard, and I'll see you next time.